Welcome to the second lecture of particle physics. We will be resuming with quantum chromodynamics. Here color plays the role of the charge. Since we had electron tends to electron plus photon, now we have quark tends to quark plus gluon. Now gluon acts like photon. In this case gluon is the carrier of a force from quark to quark. Since leptons do not carry color, they do not participate in strong interaction. Okay, now this is a Feynman diagram, a simple representation of Feynman diagram. Here is a quark and this is a gluon. Now gluon is something represented like a spring, because when we try to separate two quarks, we cannot get a single quark at normal temperature. So it has a behavior of acting like storing a lot of potential in it, and we know that what stores potential is kind of a simple harmonic oscillator or a spring. So gluons act like a spring to quark, and thus we represent it as a spring. Okay, the force between two quarks which bind together to form baryons, it is described in the lowest order by the diagram. Here, if we are to form a baryon is made up of quark and antiquark. So we have a quark and we have an antiquark, and which is actually bounded by the help of gluons, which is the carrier of force in here. And simply in that we have seen in case of the Feynman diagram of QED, where Q was replaced by E electron and G was replaced by photon. It is just a simple representation. It is as same as that was. Now in HTR we represent, in special theory of relativity, we represent E square minus P square C square is equals to M square C to the power 4. This actually represents a free particle. But in case of virtual particle, E square minus P square C square can take any value. Okay, it can take any value just to satisfy conservation law, but it cannot violate any conservation law. Okay, irrespective to charge, color are of three kinds. Color, we have color of three kinds: red, green and blue. RGB, you can call it as RGB. Similarly, we have anti-color, that is anti-red, anti-green and anti-blue. Okay, in process, Q tends to Q plus G. G is actually gluon and Q is quark, obvious representation, and Q bar can be represented as anti-quark. Okay, the color of quark may change but not the flavor. Now what is the flavor and color? We will see here that suppose there is a quark with blue color, but it is up quark, and we know up quark contains 2 by 3 times of charge. Okay, plus 2 by 3 times of charge. Now the color of it is blue, but now the color has changed into red, and the quark remains the same. Quark's value of charge remains the same. That means the flavor of quark has not changed. That is, the charge that quark had earlier is not changed, but only the color has changed. Okay, it has converted from blue to red. Now since color is always conserved, this means that gluons must carry away the difference. Like charge is always conserved, we have here that color must always be conserved. That means that there must be something that has to balance these things, and that is gluon. Okay, so in here we can see that up quark with blue color has changed into up quark of red color. Now the carrier that is known as gluon is made up of two colors. One is blue and the other one is R bar. R bar is actually anti-red color. So that anti-red color and red color mixes up and gives white color, and we are only left with blue color. Okay, here how to represent it: G of B comma R bar, 1 unit of blueness minus 1 unit of redness. Okay, now Gluons are bicolored. Gluons always have two colors, okay, carrying one color and one anti-color. There are 3 cross 3 is equals to 9 possibility, but there are only 8 types of gluons that we can found. I mean color combination that we can found, okay, because of the Lie algebra. When you go to Lie algebra, you will find that 3 cross 3 in case of Lie algebra converts into 8 plus 1, and this 1 is of something contradiction, and this one actually contains three color and anti-color pairs. Okay, this one contains 3 color and anti-color pairs. So we disregard it for now, and we will look at only 8 of the gluons. Okay, moving forward, since gluons themselves carry color, unlike the photon which is electrically neutral, they couple directly to other gluons. Okay, this one is important. Therefore we get another term, primitive gluon vertices. Earlier we had that when two electrons are approaching each other, we have a photon, and then we have another 2 electron moving away from each other. Now we saw here that there is a vertices that involves both photon and electron. There is no vertices like this, photon and then photon and then photon and then photon. This one cannot be called vertices, because photon represent only one particle, I mean one representation, and it does not form vertices by combining in itself. But gluons can combine with each other and form vertices like this one and this one, because of the fact that gluons are made up of different colors, okay, but photons are of similar type, so they don't form vertices. There are 2 kinds of it, 3 gluon vertices and 4 gluon vertices. Okay, because of these vertices, QCD is very complicated, and we will later know why. Okay, we also find here glue balls, bound states of interacting gluons with no quarks at all. It is also a possibility that we will ponder upon glue balls. Glue balls contains only gluons but no quarks at all. Okay, the value of fine structure constant in case of QED, the value of fine structure constant was 1/137, but in case of QCD, the value of fine structure constant, or you can say coupling constant, is something around is something more than 1. Okay, more complex diagram in here contributes more. We had seen that in QED, after four vertices we don't care about the diagrams, but because of the fact that the coupling constant, I mean the fine structure constant, was very small, and when it is further multiplied it gives more small value which is of negligible influence. But if the value of coupling constant is greater than 1, that means the more the diagrams, the more it contributes. Okay, so it is a bit of a confusing term. Now, does Feynman diagram seems worthless in QCD? After coming to this fact that that alpha is greater than 1, we could say that Feynman diagram is worthless in case of chromodynamics. But in case of quantum chromodynamics, the coupling constant is not constant but depend on the separation distance between the interacting particle. Okay, this one is very important. Here we should know that the coupling constant is not constant. It is not constant, but it is variable, and it depends on the separation between the interacting particles. Okay, these types of coupling constants are called running coupling constants. Okay, now this is a very important term, asymptotic freedom. It is a property of some gauge theories that causes interactions between particles to become asymptotically weaker as the energy scale increases and the corresponding length scale decreases. This is very important, you should know, but after reading these terms you might get confused, so I will directly go to the some properties. Like quarks interact weakly at high energy. That means the more the energy is, the interaction is less. Okay, at low energy the interaction becomes strong. That means the low the energy, the more interaction it get. This leads to the confinement of quark and gluons within composite hadrons. We know that hadrons are made up of quarks and gluons. So actually that property binds two quarks and gluons with each other to form hadrons. Okay, it means that within a proton the quarks rattle around without interacting much. In case of a proton, if we consider a proton, the length scale is very low and the energy scale is very high. In that case the interaction is very low. As we can see that when energy is high the interaction is low, and when the energy is low interaction is high. Thus we can say that within a proton quarks can move freely. Such behavior was found in the deep inelastic scattering experiments that we will go later on. It is a very deep topic. Therefore, it seems like asymptotic freedom saves Feynman calculus. Obviously, it saves the Feynman calculation in this way. Asymptotic freedom is thus important, very important, and you should know it. Okay? Even in electrodynamics, the effective coupling depends on how far you are from the source. It is not only applicable in quantum chromodynamics that as far you go from one particle to another, the interaction become high. It is not only applicable to quantum chromodynamics but also applicable in normal electrodynamics and in case of quantum electrodynamics. Okay, let's see normal electrodynamics. In case of normal electrodynamics, consider this as a dielectric medium where we have placed a charge, positive charge plus Q. Now if this is a dielectric medium, it has molecules which can be polarized, and those polarized molecules become directional. The negative part of the molecule gets attracted towards positive charge, and the positive part of the molecule gets away from the plus Q. Okay, in this case it is arranged in this way. This is arranged so we can say that the more near we are to the charge, the more effect of charge we get, and the farther we are, we get the less effect of this charge. So from there we get to the fact that Q effective is equals to Q by epsilon, where epsilon is the permittivity. Okay, I can read it for you. Suppose a positive charge is embedded in dielectric medium, negative end of each dipole directed toward Q. As a result, the particle acquire a halo of negative charge which partially cancel its field. That means that this negative charge acquires a halo, creates a halo, you can say. A halo means that the amount of electric field that this positive Q charge is throwing out of it is somewhat absorbed by these negative charge, and the effect that a person is standing here or a charge here will be affected by this is very low, and the electric field that will approach here will be low. Now if you are closest to Q, then you experience Q. Otherwise the effective charge increases at very small distances. Now here is a graph for Q effective, and at the peak you can say here is the original charge Q, and then there is dielectric charge Q by E. The charge that is influenced by dielectric medium Q by E, and it is a intermolecular spacing. effective charge as a function of distance. This is the graph of effective charge as a function of distance. We can see that the charge is varying here with respect to distance, and it is similar with the quantum chromodynamics case too. Now, in case of quantum electrodynamics, the thing that we learned here is only applicable to classical electrodynamics. Now, in case of quantum electrodynamics, the vacuum itself behaves like a dielectric. It sprouts positron and electron pairs as shown in the figure. In case of quantum electrodynamics, the vacuum present behaves like a dielectric medium, because in vacuum we can say that there is nothing, and when there is nothing, we can assume that suppose there is some photon traveling around, and that photon could easily be converted into a positron and electron. Then this positron and electron annihilates into photon, then further it dissociates into, pair production into electron and positron, like this. So this phenomena goes on and on and on and on, and this can be included anywhere in the vacuum. As you say that there is a vacuum, but in deep physics you will understand that there is nothing like vacuum. Everything is occupied by something. Okay, so these are some of the diagrams in which you can say that two electrons are coming here, but they get influenced by photon, then photon dissociates into electrons, then they all produce photon, and then they dissociate into electrons. Similar thing goes here, and the number of loops that here we can see can increase to infinity. Okay, now how does this become a dielectric medium? That is of importance. The virtual electron in each bubble is attracted towards positive charge Q, and the virtual positron is repelled away. This is known as vacuum polarization. Very important word, vacuum polarization, which partially screens the charge and reduce its field. That means, let me tell you this very clearly. Suppose there is a photon, out of nowhere there is a photon, and it creates a electron and positron hole pair. Okay, now since there is a proton somewhere in vacuum, and for the instant when positron and electron are formed, what will the proton will do? The proton will obviously try to attract the electron and repel the positron, and for that moment there will be a dipolar and there will be a situation of polarity. And in that situation of polarity, when suppose there is a proton which is attracting electron and repelling positron, then some of the electric field gets used by this electron, and the actual effect that we get from our laboratory gets reduced. Okay, this is very important. Now, intermolecular spacing in Compton scattering is this. This is also called Compton wavelength. This is called Compton wavelength, where lambda c is h by mc. M can be written as me, rest mass of electron, and the value is something like this. For distances smaller than this, the effective charge increases, obviously. Now, true charge of a particle is not what we measure in ordinary experiments. We have got the value of true charge as 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 or something, but that is actually not accurate. There is still some hindrance because of the vacuum polarization. Okay, now, but there is an exception. Obviously there is an exception, because we are in high energy physics. We are probing in further. We are going into the minute levels. While we do experiments with a spectrum, we go at very minute lengths. Okay, so in case of lamp shift is basically responsible for hyperfine splitting. Okay, So in case of Lamb shift, the influence of vacuum polarization is disregarded, because the distance between you can say the distance between the spectrograph that we get in case of Lamb spectra is too small, and we can say that there is not enough space for an electron and positron to be created, and thus in case of Lamb shift, the influence of vacuum polarization is disregarded or discarded. Okay, what we always called the charge of electron is actually the fully screened effective charge. Now this is a very important term. What we called the charge of electron is actually the fully screened effective charge, because it is getting screened by vacuum also, because of the electron and hole pair. The same thing happens in quantum chromodynamics, where we have quark gluon vertex and a new gluon vertex. As I told earlier that we have a new vertex here, gluon vertex, and this one is very familiar to you. You can also call it as electron photon vertex, or in case of QCD, quark gluon vertex. Now, as similar to quantum electrodynamics Feynman diagram, we have quantum chromodynamics Feynman diagram with loops. The loops that we created in case of quantum electrodynamics here, that there will be some positron and electron which could hinder the actual charge of a particle. Now here in case of gluons and quarks, we just replace these lines and we get the we get the same amount of vacuum in here. I mean we get the same empty space, and here also some hindrance happens, and the actual effect of gluon and quarks are not available. They get some hindrance by vacuum too. Okay, now there occurs a lot of competition between the quark polarization diagrams, okay, which drive alpha s. Alpha s, as I told you earlier, it is actually the critical constant which drive alpha s up to short distances, and gluon polarization which drives it down. Okay, now this is very important to know that there occurs a lot of competition between quark polarization. I mean, polarization could be of many types. Polarization could be done by quark or could be done by gluon. Now, which one affect more? That is important. In case of if quark is having some polarization, then the constant is increased, and if the gluon is having polarization, then the constant is decreased. Okay, now consider these variables. Number of flavors, number of quarks is equals to f, and number of color gluons is equals to n. Here is the formula: A is equals to 2f minus 11n. It is also called as critical parameter. If this number is positive, then critical constant increases at short distances, and if this value is negative, then critical constant decreases at short distances. Okay, in case of a standard model where we know that the number of flavors, I mean the number of quarks are 6 and the number of colors that we know are 3, there the value is A is equals to minus 21. So the A is negative. That means that critical constant decreases at short distances. Now quantum chromodynamics coupling decreases at short distances. This one is very important. Okay, now qualitatively, this is the origin of asymptotic freedom. The thing that we learned earlier about asymptotic freedom is qualitatively proved here. Okay, so no naturally occurring particles carry color. This one is very important, that there is not a single particle that carries color, because all the naturally occurring particles contain a a color and an anti-color, or a sum of three colors that becomes white. Therefore, all the naturally occurring particles are actually colorless. So quarks are confined in colorless packets of 2 and 3. If there are 2 quarks which are confined, then it is known as mesons. If there are 3 quarks that are confined, then they are baryons. But this is to be embedded in your head that all these mesons and baryons are colorless. All of them are colorless. Okay. Now moving on. Suppose we have a proton, and proton consists of up and down quark. Now we want to separate an up quark from this. We are pulling the up quark with all our might. Okay. Now when we are pulling an up quark, there is a formation of down and anti-down quark inside the vacuum. Okay. And there is U and D quark which are together. Now anti-D quark will form a pion with U quark, and this D quark will form neutron with U and D quark. Okay. So what does this mean actually, and what is the significance of this quark and anti-quark is? Now as you can see that this is actually a process that is very common, where proton is changed into neutron via pion exchange. You have learned it, I mean you have seen it or heard it somewhere. We pulled U quark out, but it created a quark pair in extra. A single quark is hard to be found. It is kind of not found. Okay. Doesn't it look like pion exchange model by Yukawa? Okay, now you remember that Yukawa pion exchange model is this model. Very important model, and you should know it. You should know this, that how does this happen. Now about this quark and anti-quark, we are going to discuss it right now. That is something called quark confinement. In case of quantum chromodynamics, it is a phenomena that color charged particles cannot be isolated and therefore cannot be directly observed in normal condition below the Hagedorn temperature of approx 2 trillion Kelvin. Is that okay? It cannot be observed until we have achieved 2 trillion Kelvin. That means a single quark is not possible until we have approached Hagedorn temperature. Okay. Now where does the quark and anti-quark pair comes from? Potential energy increases without limit as the quarks are pulled farther and farther apart, so that it would take an infinite energy enough to create a quark and anti-quark pair to separate them completely. This means that when we are separating up quark from up and down quark, then we are creating an enormous amount of potential energy, and that enormous amount of potential energy has given birth to a quark and an anti-quark. Okay, which further, using the quark confinement rule, forms two particles. Okay, now remember this one is also known as Yukawa pion exchange model. So that's all for today. See you tomorrow.